Okay, thanks very much, Brad and Kate, for inviting me. So today I'll present a talk about World Heritage in Danger and how we can use big data and remote sensing to examine threats to such sites, especially in conflict zones. And this presentation is based on a paper we published last year in Global Environmental Change, with together with Salim Ali, which was previously at UQ, now he's at the University of Delaware, David Crandall from Indiana University, and Salit Kark from here. So I can share this paper, but you can also download it directly. Okay, let's start. So 1972, that's the year of that the World Heritage Convention was signed. And that convention recognizes the way that people, we interact with nature, and also invented a new mechanism, a new idea, that of World Heritage sites, which have outstanding universal values based on several criteria. And these can be either natural values or cultural values. So it's not just biodiversity. Okay, also cultural heritage is part of the game here. And as you know, there's many World Heritage sites very different from each other. Okay, you've got the pyramids in Egypt or the Great Barrier Reef in Queensland. So very different things are included in this list, which are all recognized for their values to all of us, all people on the world. What we usually use in conservation are the protected areas. That's the mechanism that we all are more familiar with, which can be either based on, they can either be national protected areas or regional, like the ones in the EU. The international protected areas include the Ramsar Convention of Lands, and also World Heritage sites are part of this. As we also know, even when a site is protected as a protected area, it doesn't really safeguard it because things can happen. And there have been several papers about protected area downgrading, downsizing, and degazettement. I'm setting now the scene to the equivalent in World Heritage sites. And in this figure from a paper published in 2014, you can see the increase in downgrading, downsizing, and degazetting events around the world, which happen mostly, as we can see here, in Latin America, Africa, and Asia. So it's more in the developing world that these things happen. And so how can we tell whether sites are under pressure? Papers published by Jane Wasson and his group have shown some of the way. So using, for example, the human footprint. So if the human footprint is above 4, they declare this as being under intense human pressure. So this paper shows that about a third of protected areas are under intense human pressure. And now let's go on to the World Heritage list. So all the data on the World Heritage list is available on the UNESCO World Heritage site. And as you can see now, there are presently more than 1,000, they call it properties, World Heritage sites. The majority are cultural sites. So most of what we as people declare to be included in that list are sites based on the cultural values. And less than 20% are natural sites. Some are mixed, both natural and cultural values. And we can also see that there are also 2 other categories, which I will soon go into a bit more details. We've got 2 which were delisted and 53 as of now in danger. Okay, which are shown here in red. Okay, these, the reds are the in danger, the yellow are the cultural sites, and the green are the natural sites. a paper that James Allen wrote focused on the natural World Heritage sites. And in that paper, they looked at both the change in human footprint, which is what is here, HF, and also change in forest loss based on Hansen's data sets. And they show that some natural World Heritage sites are under threats because of changes in human footprint that you can see here, where the red colors are increasing the human footprint scores. And also in this map, we can see where there was greater forest loss in natural World Heritage sites. Of course, only forested sites can lose forest cover. Okay, if these are natural sites like in the Sahara Desert, of course, that forest loss is not relevant to them. Okay, but as I told you, the majority of World Heritage sites are not natural sites, they are cultural sites. So we need other tools or other approaches to examine the threats to those sites. So that's part of what we aim to do here. And within the World Heritage list, there is a special category of World Heritage sites in danger, which are threatened by serious and specific dangers. And these can be many things. Okay, deterioration of a site, urban development around the site that threatens the character of that site, and natural disasters, fires, conflicts. Okay, many things can endanger World Heritage sites. And to declare a site as being under danger, you need that in the annual meeting of all the countries, that happens every year around June or July, they can vote and declare that the site is in danger. The next meeting is currently postponed because of the coronavirus. And they said that they will announce when it will happen later on. Only 2 sites have ever been delisted. That's the equivalent of like a degazettement. Okay. One of them is the this was delisted in 2007, mainly because of oil exploration, that the government of Oman decided to allow oil exploration in that area. So UNESCO decided to delist it. And the other case is the Dresden Elbe Valley, that because of construction of a big bridge crossing the valley, I don't know if it's this bridge specifically, then UNESCO decided that the character of that valley has been damaged. So these are the only 2 sites which have been ever delisted from the UNESCO World Heritage list. Our aim in this research was to identify the key factors threatening all World Heritage sites, in short WHS, and especially those which are described as being in danger. And to do that, we employed many variables. Some of our analysis was done at the global level, and some we focused just on the Arab world for reasons that I will soon explain. So our base data set was the World Heritage sites, whether they are in danger or not, and also when did they become in danger and what were the reasons that they became listed as such. We also intersected that with the global database of protected areas, and also with several data sets, some of them global like the human footprint, and also monthly time series of several data sets which I will soon present. And then we try to see, okay, is there any correspondence between the human footprint and whether sites are in danger or not in danger? To what degree do the endangerment of World Heritage sites, can we explain that using time series of other, both physical and human variables? So that's the approach that we took. So this flowchart shows this. So which monthly data sets, which time series did we use? The first one is nighttime lights. Nighttime lights are a great indicator to look at human activity. And since 2012, we have global monthly composites and even nightly, so every night, calibrated night lights data of a satellite which is called VIIRS at 700 meters. And this can give us a good indicator of population, economic activity, and also damage due to either natural disasters or to conflicts. So this is one data set. The next one which he used are the active fires. That's from MODIS and from another satellite. So this is a daily mapping of all active fires. So this is an additional thing we thought can be a good indicator of whether there is some risk. So this is something we wanted to check. Another data set is the Uppsala Conflict Data Program. So that's a Swedish global data set, which is spatially explicit, where they map all conflicts. Okay, so for example, all cases where there have been deaths because of conflicts. So that's a global data set which we used. An additional one is the global terrorism database. Not very happy things, but this again, it's a spatially explicit data set with where they try to map all terrorism events with coordinates, time, etc. And the last data set within this study is from the GDELT project, which is an amazing project, the global data on events, location, and tone. Tone meaning like positive, negative. So they scan tens of thousands news websites in more than 60 languages, translate them automatically, geolocate them, identify what's going on, and they update this database every 15 minutes. And it's a huge database. And everything is available. Okay, so this is about good and bad things which are happening. So we use this data with the GDELT project to examine all fighting events. Okay, so they have codes for different events. So we just use the events about fighting, i.e. armed conflicts. And the last database, you all know, the World Database on Protected Areas, just to see how well do World Heritage Sites correspond with other protected areas. Okay, so let's start with some of the findings. The countries are colored based on the number of World Heritage Sites within them. And the points show the World Heritage Sites which have been declared as being in danger. Okay, altogether, when we did this study, there were 54 World Heritage Sites in danger, and 30 of those have been declared as such after 2010. Okay, after 2010. So it's a very rapid increase just in the recent decade. And we can also see that the global distribution is not random. Okay, they don't happen everywhere in all countries. They happen more in certain countries. We will soon see this. Of all the World Heritage Sites, so the majority are cultural sites. About 5% of all cultural sites were listed in danger, and about 8% of all natural sites were listed in danger. Okay. Now, what are the reasons that led the inclusion of sites as being in danger? So we just went over all the reports of the UNESCO. They list, okay, what were the reasons that a site was declared as being in danger? And a site can be declared as such due to more than a single reason. Okay, it can be both, for example, poaching and mining. So each point here shows when a site was being declared as being in danger and what were the reasons for it to be included. And the reasons are sorted here from the most frequent at the bottom, okay, armed conflicts, to the least frequent. A certain site just burned, okay? There was a big fire and the site was burned down. So that was the reason for that specific site. And you can see the increase in recent years in the number of sites added to this list. And now we looked at, okay, so what were the three most common factors or leading threats to both to cultural and natural World Heritage sites? And the common, the factor which was common, or the threat which was common to, is a leading threat to both natural and cultural World Heritage sites, was armed conflicts. Okay, 19 of the cultural sites and 6 of the natural World Heritage sites were being declared in danger because of armed conflicts. So we, later on in this research, we focused on this specific cause because it's the leading cause as of now. Now, the relationship between environment and conflicts in itself is not a trivial one. You know, according to the classic theory of Malthus, if we put too much pressure on the environment, then conflicts will ensue. Of course, it's not as trivial as that. It's not that because the temperature increased in 2 degrees, then people start fighting. It's, you know, it's a more complicated phenomena. And also conflicts can have both positive and negative impacts on the environment. For example, the demilitarized zone between South and North Korea, this can be seen as a positive effect for the environment because that is like a de facto protected area between these two countries. However, often conflicts have negative impacts on the environment because there's no enforcement of law, areas are being destroyed, there's more deforestation, more poaching, etc., etc. People are moving around. So that in itself is an interesting area of study. In this figure, we show whether World Heritage sites, do they overlap also with other types of protected areas? And the protected areas are here shown based on the IUCN category from 1A, which is the most strict one, to VI. And as you can see, most of the World Heritage sites, especially the cultural ones, do not overlap with other protected areas. Okay, so the World Heritage listing, that's the only protection. They do not always overlap with other types of protected areas. Overlapping the World Heritage sites with the human footprint, and remember that in that paper, that a human footprint score of above 4 was defined as high human pressure. 95% of all cultural World Heritage sites, okay, were in areas of high human pressures, and 50% of all natural World Heritage sites are also above the 4. And it's not surprising that many cultural World Heritage sites have a high human footprint because many of them are actually in cities. Okay, the human footprint was more designed for natural areas, not for cultural sites. And in this figure, we can see both the natural and cultural World Heritage sites, the average human footprint score, and also on the other axis, whether they are in danger or not in danger. And as you can see, the human footprint of sites in danger and not in danger, okay, it's not so different, especially not for the cultural World Heritage sites. Okay, there is no difference between them. In these maps show the threats which led to the inclusion of World Heritage sites as being in danger. And you can see that the spatial distribution is not random. Okay, armed conflicts are the main threat in a big threat in Africa and the Middle East mainly. Poaching is mainly in Africa. Deforestation in the tropical areas. Development can also be a threat in developing countries like in the UK or in the US. And poor management can happen, can also happen everywhere. Okay, that we don't manage the site well. And in the rest of this research, we will focus now on armed conflicts, and especially in the Middle East, following the what has been called the Arab Spring. Okay, so the events from 2010 onwards, which in some countries are still continuing, like in Syria and Yemen with the civil war there. So another source that we used are the UNESCO news. So UNESCO on their website, they have news, their own news, and where they detail stuff going on. It can be good things, can be bad things. So we searched this website of the UNESCO news for all news relating to our countries. And then we classify them. Everything has been done manually. In this case, whether the news are good, like a new site is being inscribed in the UNESCO World Heritage List, or these are positive news, or whether these are negative news. Okay, something bad is happening, and in brown you can see a site has been added to the list in danger. So the x-axis here is the time that the news item was published in the UNESCO website, and each row is a different country, different Arab country. And we can see that after 2010, okay, I'll just color it. So the Arab Spring started about here. So moving to the right, you can see an increase in the frequency of negative news. Especially, we can see Iraq, Syria, and Yemen. Okay, these are like big hotspots. But also Libya, okay, comes in. Okay. Then to try to look at some correlations, some of the explanatory variables. So the countries here are colored based on the are colored based on the trend in terrorism events. Okay, so if there was an increase in terrorism events since 2000, these are redder colors. So we can see, for example, all of Syria, most of Iraq, part of Sinai, okay, so, and also Libya, of course, Yemen. So we can see countries where there's been an increase in terrorism events. And the points, these pentagons, okay, these are the World Heritage Sites. If they are not in danger, they are yellow. And if they are in danger, it's, these are red or deep brown pentagons, okay? So first of all, visually, okay, it seems like there is a correspondence between where there is an increase in violence and the threat to World Heritage Sites. And the next thing we did, we took all the World Heritage Sites in Arab countries. It's almost 130 sites. And about a quarter of them are now being listed in the in danger list. And when we calculated the average values of the different monthly variables for the sites in danger and the sites not in danger in the Arab world. What do we see here? In this figure, we can see changes in night lights. Okay, nighttime brightness in the sites in danger in red, in the sites not in danger in blue. And you can see that after the Arab Spring, you can see that they separate. The sites not in danger. You can see an increase in brightness, so it means that okay, things are good. You know, maybe things are going good economically. More people are coming, so more lights. And the site in danger, you can see a decrease in lights, meaning that there's damage to infrastructure or to electricity. These data only relate to the sites themselves. Another similar figure is for G-Delt fight events. Again, in red is in danger since 2010, and in blue, all the other World Heritage sites. And again, here you can see that there was a statistical difference between the sites in danger and not in danger, with significantly more fighting events near the World Heritage sites since 2010. The same can be found for the terrorism events from the other data set. So we can see that there are data sets, a monthly time series, that can indeed inform us whether sites are in danger or not. Some of the time series that we checked, we didn't really separate between the two. For example, fires. Okay, these are fire events on the y-axis from MODIS satellite. And there was no statistical difference whether in fire events between sites which have been defined as being in danger and the other sites. Also, Flickr photos, these are photos uploaded to the website of Flickr by visitors. And again, here, there was no statistical difference between sites in danger and not in danger. And just an example, focusing here on Bethlehem. Bethlehem, the holy sites in Bethlehem are World Heritage sites. They are defined as in danger, but not because of the armed conflict. It's more because of the maintenance. And you can see, based on the number of photos, that people are still coming there to visit, tourists. So Flickr photos and fires were not found as good variables to separate between these two groups of sites in danger and not in danger. Other figures which we used, for example, I'll just show this one. The next one is more complicated. These are all the sites in Arab world countries. The points are colored based on the country. If a point has a circle around it, it is a site in danger, okay? The x-axis is changes in fighting events. Was there an increase in fighting events? The y-axis is whether there were increases in terrorism events. We can see that they are correlated to each other, and that most of the sites where there were increases in fighting events and in terrorism have been defined as being in danger. I will skip this one. And now just focus on three specific World Heritage sites. First is the ancient city of Damascus, okay? The black line is when was the site added to the danger list. And we can see the x-axis is time, okay, days before and after it was added. And as you can see, the ancient city of Damascus was defined as being in danger long after everything already happened. Okay, so the fighting, the terrorism events, the decrease in nightlights, the stop in tourism. Okay, you can see that there were many photos taken there, and then none. Okay, almost no photos, no visitors, no tourists are coming, of course, to Syria these days. So it took maybe 2 or 3 years after the events to finally declare this place as being in danger. The same thing we can see on the left to the ancient city of Aleppo, also in Syria. that only about 2 years after the city was destroyed was it declared as being in danger. On the other hand, on the right, you can see the site of Palmyra, a very important place in the desert of Syria, with an amazing archaeological site. It was being declared as in danger at the same time as Damascus and Aleppo, well before it was being destroyed. However, declaring that the site is in danger doesn't, of course, make it immune to war or to the effects of war. And the countries are not, for the world to intervene and try to stop, to save a site, a political site. It's not a trivial thing. And the photos on the bottom can show you before and after photos that I found on the internet. So how did Palmyra look before and after it was destroyed on purpose by ISIS? So some conclusions. So the human footprint was found as not a useful metric for identifying threats to cultural World Heritage sites. And that is just because the human footprint is more designed for natural areas, not for cultural areas where people are present all the time. World Heritage sites were meant initially to attract tourism. So it's a tool for a country to attract people to direct them where to come. But tourism in itself is also a threat. Both it can lead to excessive pressures. And also, as in the case of ISIS and the Taliban in Afghanistan, it makes sites even more targeted to terrorism. Okay, we want to show the world, to attract media by destroying some place. Another conclusion that we wrote, that the UNESCO endangered list should be updated more frequently, not just once a year. So there should be some mechanism. If things are happening, we should declare the site in danger much earlier. Maybe something can be done. And another thing that also other people are working on is that using remote sensing to map damage to archaeological sites. Just showing you a few papers on this, published, and there are many papers about this, how cultural sites can be mapped and the damage to them, how they can map from satellites. Here's an example showing the destruction of one of the palaces in Palmyra in Syria. So it shows the time series from high resolution satellites, how this was destroyed. And so remote sensing and big data, like what we used here, they can enable us to provide a warning of risk to World Heritage sites sometimes before actual damage happens. And this is of relevance and interest to many organizations. I will just give a few names. So there's several organizations which are interested in World Heritage sites and in providing aid to them, like the Rapid Response Facility, the Global Heritage Fund, Blue Shield, and of course, UNESCO itself. The IUCN has, for natural sites, it has a World Heritage Outlook. All natural heritage sites, they've done it already twice, in 2014, 2017, working with experts in the countries and doing a detailed work in a report whether sites are doing good or there's significant concern or whether they are in critical threat. And you can download all reports from this website. However, I don't know if they have a similar thing for cultural World Heritage sites. And this is something that should be developed, and such tools that we showed here can be useful. So I'd like to thank you for your attention. And just showing you here two World Heritage sites, one from Israel, the Masada National Park, and from here in Australia, Uluru Katatyuta National Park. So that's all from me.